in the world? Tell me. We are all in the world. Even Sri Ramakrishna was in this world. All incarnations were in this world. Lord Christ was in this world. Buddha was in this world. What does it matter? World is the stage. This is the place where we have to practice the values of life. This is the place where we have to conquer our lower self. This is the place where we have to destroy the lower propensities. So, that is why this renunciation is described by spiritual men as jnanam, means knowledge. When you become aware of the value of renunciation, then you have opened your eyes. Then you have got an awakening. So renunciation is synonymous with knowledge. Knowledge of the highest. Knowledge of the self. Knowledge of what you are. So, knowledge and renunciation are two sides of a coin. That is the real wealth that we should seek, not this worldly wealth which neither gives satisfaction nor gives happiness. So we have seen men of spirituality in the ancient times going to forest. Why? Why did they go to forest? To discover the truth. Retiring to the forest is a means to the end. Just as scientists, they retire to their laboratories to discover the laws of nature. They won't do it in their home. They leave everything, go to the laboratory. Scientists acquired the knowledge in their laboratories. The knowledge is meant for the world, not for the laboratory. You need to apply it in your day-to-day living, so that you can make use of these scientific discoveries for your worldly happiness. Similarly, the knowledge of truth discovered in the forest by the sages, by the seers, is also meant for the world, not for the forest. It's a very important point you please try to note. Vedanta philosophy never teaches that renunciation is just retiring to the forest. No, Vedanta doesn't teach that way. Renunciation is nothing to do with your place, with your position or profession. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. Renunciation, what does it do? It simply refines you, places you on your vantage ground, puts you right on the top. It removes all your worries, all your miseries once and for all. It takes away all your anguish. It takes away all your anxieties. It makes you fearless. The moment you become fearless, free, you are really happy. There is a stern law of nature, of life. The whole thing is governed by law. Whether we know it or we may not know it. Whether we are aware of it or not aware of it. Much less follow it. If you cling to any material form, if you hold on to it, if you love it very dearly, if you are selfishly attached to it, you will find that without fail, something terrible happens to it. You lose your object of your desire. Whereas, if you are in a state of resignation, a state of abstraction, if you live a life of mental detachment, it's a mental attitude. You will find that material objects and worldly successes, they come and cling to you. You are not clinging on them. That's the law. That is, attach, you lose. Detach, you gain. If you do not find authorities to support it, it is nevertheless the inexorable law of nature. Observe it in your own surroundings. Learn it from your own experiences. Realize this truth from your personal knowledge. The way to gain anything is to lose it. The way to achieve anything is to give it up. Now, let us take some examples to understand this idea more clearly. The phenomenon of color substantiates this truth. Physics explains the principle underlying the phenomenon of color. How? You know, light consists of 7 colors. Just as music has 7 musical notes, sarigama padani. In the same way, the color has got 7 colors. Violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. These 7 colors are classified. Now, you see an object when it is bathed in light. In fact, when you see an object, you see it by the light that it reflects. Suppose there is a red rose. It appears red because it reflects red color only. It absorbs the other 6 colors and rejects red color. In short, a rose is red not because it has red in it, but because it gives away red. The same principle applies to any other color. When an object takes in all the colors, when an object takes in all the colors and releases none, then what happens? That object becomes black. Conversely, when an object gives away all the 7 colors and takes in none, then what happens? It appears white. These examples are very important for us to understand the meaning of renunciation. Then only you will appreciate the tremendous importance of practicing renunciation, however difficult it might be. I am not afraid of difficulties. Why should I be afraid? The more you are afraid, the more it kills you. The only way to get over being killed is to be strong, be fearless. That's all. Why should you be fear? Always dwell upon strength. Think positively. I am strong in every respect. Keep on meditating on this idea of strength more and more, every moment of your thinking, doing, in every way, in every respect. So, when an object gives away all the 7 colors and takes in none, it appears white. It is very strange, but it is the law. The same law holds good in your life as well. Let us apply this to the life. You arrogate a thing to yourself, you lose it. Do not claim anything as yours, you gain everything. Once upon a time, there lived a king. One day, he called his chief minister and wanted to know whether there is anybody who is of perfect renunciation. Just he wanted to know whether any such person, any such great man is living in his country, in his state. The chief minister took it very casually and he said, "Oh, there is one in every street corner." He just made a statement. But the king took it seriously. See, you should not cut jokes at the king. You must be very careful. But anyway, after some time the king asked him, "Well, I wanted to see, you are telling in every street corner there is one man of perfect renunciation. I want to meet him." So, he told him, but the chief minister kept quiet, kept silent, didn't act upon. Then the matter really became very serious. And he said, look, why are you not paying attention to what I have told you to do? I wanted to see and meet a person of renunciation. But you are not carrying out my orders. If you don't do it within 3 days, you will lose your job. Then the matter became very grave, and the chief minister became really panic because he will lose his job, he will lose all his position, place, everything. People will laugh at him. So, without losing time, he went out, searched for such a person everywhere. But is it so easy to get a person of perfect renunciation? Not easy. So then he thought of a plan. He contacted a young man and he told him, look, you please behave like a man of renunciation, because the king wants to see one. I am bringing the king. But you behave in such a way that you desire nothing, you want nothing. And I will give you very high amount wealth to you. Don't worry about your future. I will look after your prospects. Like that, he tempted the young man. And who is telling? Chief Minister of the state is telling, not simply somebody else. So the young man really thought, because he had no job, and he thought, why not? I became a rich man in overnight. It should be very simple for me to act. So he agreed. So next day, the chief minister told the king, Your Majesty, please come, we shall go. And the king wanted to go with all the people, with the ladies and all the officials of the palace, everybody. They wanted to go in a big procession. They wanted to go and see the holy man. So they all came. And the chief minister took him towards a tree where a young man, good looking, and with shining eyes and good form, wearing a ochre cloth, sitting in meditation. The king was, at the outset, he was very much impressed by first of all, he's a young man. So, anybody for that matter, if he is young, he looks very beautiful. Anybody. So, and added to that, he is behaving like a saint. So the king was very respectful, and he himself went and offered his salutations to him. And all the ladies who came along with him also, they offered their salutations. And the chief minister also had to do, because the king is doing, he should not simply stand behind. So he also went and offered his salutations to that young fellow. So he was very much pleased by this man of renunciation and offered him lots of money, clothing, food, everything. So he had brought lots of things to offer to him. Big, big trays. Everything was being brought. Every time it was being offered, the monk was telling him very politely but firmly, he told the king, take it away. I don't need any of these things. Take away. And the king was amazed, seeing that he is not accepting anything. Even the dead body will open its eyes if the money is shown to it. How is it? This man is not showing any inclination towards money, but he appreciated. He was very well satisfied. Well, in my state at least I have got this wonderful person of renunciation. So he was completely satisfied and returned to the palace. Then immediately afterwards the chief minister rushed back to this young man. He brought a bag of gold because he had told that he would give him. So he appreciated him for his outstanding performance. And he offered me the bag of gold. But to his amazement, this young monk, who pretended to be a monk before, now he is telling him to take it away. He could not believe himself. What? I understand when the king offered, he refused because I had told him. But he is refusing even now. So he was confused. So he wanted to make sure whether he is pretending or really he doesn't want. So he said, well, the play is over. The king has gone back. Now you may accept what I had promised you. Don't hesitate to take. Then that young man said words of wisdom. Sir, I have seen just now the beauty of life. I have learnt a great lesson today. I pretended to be a monk of renunciation for a while, for which the king, the queen, the prince, the princesses, and you too, all fell at my feet. I put on just an act of renunciation, a show of abstraction, and so much wealth and reverence were showered on me. What would I not achieve if I sincerely gave up everything? Realize that, sir, and take back your bag of gold. In Sanskrit, we have two most significant words. Today I am dealing mainly with Vedantic principles. Sometimes this Vedantic injection is required. Vedantic shots are required. It removes all your superstition. Makes you wide awake. In Sanskrit, there are two significant words. One is bhoga, another is yoga. Bhoga yoga. Bhoga means enjoyment. Yoga means renunciation. People take these two words as antonymous. That is, they believe bhoga is diametrically opposite to yoga. But Vedanta says in a different way. It says it is not so. If you study them carefully, you will find that bhoga or enjoyment is nothing other than yoga or renunciation. That is, they are synonymous. It may sound revolutionary, but that is a simple truth. That is, there can be no real enjoyment except in renunciation. Enjoyment aspect, if you want to have the real enjoyment, that you will get it in renunciation. There is a great artist, a poet, a philosopher. What does he do? He sacrifices his ego to his art, to his poetry, to his philosophy. He no longer entertains the idea, I am doing, I am writing, I am knowing, etc. His mind doesn't dwell that way. The moment he renounces the arrogating ego, he becomes the personification of real joy, real happiness, and real bliss. He becomes a source of inspiration. He turns into a spiritual man. The path to Supreme Self, the way to bliss or realization is crucifixion of the little self. There is a famous Shakespeare's Hamlet. You are all well aware of that. It's a wonderful movie filmed with famous actor Sir Lawrence Oliver. The play, Shakespeare's Hamlet, is a great tragedy. Every bit of it is very, very sad, most melancholic, but most magnificent. It was a splendid production. This movie, it drew millions of admirers all over the world. They enjoyed it thoroughly. Many saw it over and over again. There are people who have seen that at least 50 times. There was a charm about that picture which kept everybody spellbound. With all that, would anyone desire to? What makes the movie so attractive, so enjoyable? How does a sad picture make millions happy? The reason is simple. It is their detachment from the picture. It is their aloofness. It is because they are not mixed up or entangled or involved in it. That's the secret. When you look upon the picture as a witness, it's a source of enjoyment. When you get directly involved in it, it's a source of misery. So it is with the world. Keep your mind anchored in the divinity within and look at your household matters just as you look at the picture. Vedanta requires you to live in your homes, with your families, run your offices with your associates, go about in this world with the rest of mankind impersonally as a witness, without getting attached to them, without getting entangled. When you look at the phenomena of this world from an impersonal standpoint as a witness, if you look at it objectively, it lends a charm. It is beautiful. It is wonderful. You enjoy every bit of it. But if you view it personally, if you lose your objectivity, if you get involved and entangled in it, you are becoming more and more miserable. You suffer because of that. That is the universal law. There were two friends, childhood friends. One day, they wanted to go on a picnic because they had met after many years. Particularly the childhood friends, if they come, you feel so joyful. Well, these two friends, childhood friends, but the lives are different. One is a thorough businessman. The other one was a man of renunciation. So they were talking for a long time, and then they came across a river. They wanted to cross over. They wanted to go on the other side of the river. But it was very late in the evening. The boatman refused to ferry them across. And the area was infested with wild animals. So they had to cross the river even though it is late. They didn't want to stay on in that area because of the wild animals. They were scared of the animals. So what the businessman did was he offered the boatman double the price for crossing the river. The boatman became very happy. So he took them and they went to the other side of the river. They crossed the river. Now, the businessman put a question to the monk friend. Now tell me, of what use is renunciation? If I had not the money today, both of us would have been devoured by wolves. Wild wolves are there. I feel you have done wrong in choosing this life of renunciation. The businessman thought he was the most wise man, and because the other man was his friend, so he dared to say like that. But the man of renunciation did not get excited over that. He did not become angry. What you are showing disrespect to a monk. He didn't show any such reaction. Just he replied, "My dear friend, it is true that your money helped us today, but reflect a little deeper. Was it retention or resignation that really saved our lives?" The practice of renunciation or detachment seems unpalatable to you. It seems detestable. You complain that it stings you. But little do you realize that the sting of renunciation takes you to a higher state, to a greater bliss. Suppose you have fallen asleep. You have moved from your waking state to dream state. Now you are dreaming. In the dream you are in a prison. You found that life in the prison was highly miserable. So you just are struggling to get out of it. So you are trying to take the help of all the other prisoners. You even offered prayers to gods to release you from the prison. But still you are in the prison, you got frustrated. All this experience you are undergoing in the dream. Just at that time, when you are suffering intensely and feeling yourself most miserable, at that point of time, you are bitten by a snake. The sting is painful, very painful indeed. But because of that sting, you woke up. Instantly you are liberated from the thraldom of the dream. You are no longer in the prison. All your miseries and troubles have vanished. How all these things could happen? The dream snake did the trick. Dream snake did the trick. So it is with renunciation. Renunciation is like the snake in the dream. Its sting may seem to be painful, but it is extremely gainful. It takes you to the next plane of consciousness. It assures you to the eternal bliss of realization. So, renunciation has got that supreme value. As long as there is the trace of hankering after these worldly things is there in the mind, you cannot get the realization of God. So, all the spiritual disciplines, all the yogas, all the religions of the world, they teach you to reach the goal only this Vedantic approach makes it more clear where we are, why we are here, why are we suffering, what's the cause of suffering, how to get out of this suffering. Questions and answers are both in our heart. Practice Vedanta, then you will get real peace, even though you are in this world, in this life. So with these words, I conclude my talk. Who practiced through his life all the various disciplines of religion and declared that all the religions lead to the same goal. By this declaration, he removed all narrowness in the name of religion. It is very important to note this point in the modern context, where even now people are so dogmatic and fanatic about their respective religion. So, what has happened is the attitude of one-pointedness and holding on to one particular path with steadfast devotion and faith sometimes leads people to become fanatic. If they do not understand the value of the broad-mindedness, unless a person understands the due reverence for all religions, he ends up in some kind of fanaticism. So, whoever comes to Sri Ramakrishna, this point is very clear. We can never become fanatic, we can never become dogmatic. We mean what we say. Saying, feeling, doing, everything is unified. There's coordination between what we think, what we do. When we say we accept all religions, we do mean by that exactly what we said. We respect all religions, we respect all incarnations, we worship them, giving same respect as we give to Sri Ramakrishna. That's why we have seen in our shrine here, we have kept Lord Buddha, Lord Christ, to indicate that all these incarnations are coming from the same source, that is Brahman. So, it is very important to know this spiritual idea and then practice a different path. You won't be dogmatic. Everyone is struggling to get free from suffering, and you cannot be free from the miseries of the world as long as the mind is allowed to run after the worldly objects. As long as you always cherish in your mind, I must do this, I must do that, I must go here, I must go there, I have got to do this, I have got to do that. So this kind of identification with the things external, I ought to live like this, I can't go on spending time in thinking about God, who will look after my wife, who will look after my children. So all these things, they simply push you to hang on the world and worldly environments, worldly situations, worldly things, worldly events. So, the more and more mind is pushed that way, the more and more you are chaining yourself so hard to break the chain. It becomes so hard. You become suffocated. You crave for freedom, you crave for happiness, you crave for joy, but you cannot get out of it because you yourself have chained so hard, difficult to break off. So, what Sri Ramakrishna wants to point out here is that if you are really aspiring for spiritual unfoldment, if you want to develop your spiritual personality inherent in you, very important point you should remember, that is, you must certainly get rid of worldliness. There is no compromise there. You must have to give up the worldliness. As long as your mind is sticking on to that, that means as long as you are establish yourself on the divine form. So, Sri Ramakrishna tells, take care. At least you have become aware. Who is the cause of my trouble? My own worldly inclinations. They are the cause of my trouble. Remove the cause, suffering goes, vanishes instantly. Without removing the cause, if you just apply external ointment to the wound, just for a day or two it appears as if it is healed. Again it comes up because the inside the wound is not healed. So we have wounded ourselves so deeply, it is rather very hard to heal the wound that has occurred in our inner being. That is, the mind is wounded. That wound is because of the worldliness. So we have to get rid of this worldliness, whatever it is and however difficult it might be. That's very important point. Whatever path you may follow, whatever yoga you may practice, wherever you may be, either you may be in the forest, or you may be in the home, or you may be in the office, wherever you may be, you have to get rid of this worldliness. Then only the spiritual plant sprouts. As long as the worldliness remains in the mind, it obstructs the growth of spiritual plant that is there in every one of us. There are certain ways of getting rid of this worldliness. How to get rid of this worldliness? It's so easy to know, but very difficult to do it. There are so many ways of getting rid of this worldliness. Once you know the danger, certainly you will take these steps to avoid the danger. First you must become sure of the danger. That's very important. That's the first step. Danger of worldliness. Now, suppose some sweets are offered to you. You are a healthy man. You take the bit of the sweet, you enjoy it so well. Oh, how nice it is. Let me take some more. You take it. You would like to have little more. Again you take it. Go on taking it because you want to satisfy yourself. The more and more you take, the intensity of the happiness that you would feel by taking the sweet gets reduced slowly. And at one point of time, when you have taken sufficiently large quantities of sweets, then you feel nothing more. I don't want anything now. I don't want any more sweets. I don't want. Period. So like that you decide. But that decision you took it only after you had more than what you wanted. In the same way, the worldliness also. The person becomes worldly, too much worldly, so much worldly, then he becomes disgusted with worldliness. Then, no more. Enough of it. No more. I don't want. You simply run away from the worldly situations and environments. But anyway, mind has to be withdrawn from the world, from the glamorous world. It has to be taken back. So, that is one way. Another way is not to go on getting involved in the worldly things. What is this? I am undergoing a lot of problems, sufferings, so and so. Is this all that I am getting? Then why should I aspire for this? So you must cut off all worldly aspirations with a strong willpower. It means you have to exert your willpower, you have to develop your willpower, you have to strengthen your willpower. Then it is possible to pull the mind from worldliness. Then only you will be able to fix the mind or make the mind sit at the spiritual idea. Then only you will be able to concentrate and achieve something worthwhile. So, only when you are able to free the mind from worldliness completely, then only you will become well established in a state of samadhi. Samadhi is a state where you are enjoying peace and joy. It is possible also sometimes suddenly gathering the dispersed mind. One may get into that samadhi state. But this kind of samadhi does not last long because the worldly thoughts are not removed. So they intrude and destroy that state of samadhi. That is why we find in the field of spirituality so many yogis, so many men of spirituality slip down from yoga. They slip down from yoga because the worldly weeds have not been removed. They were there at some corner of the mind, so they are coming up and creating problems. Sri Ramakrishna explains it, giving an example. There is a kind of animal, mongoose. It lives in its hole up in the wall. It feels snug there. Sometimes people tie a brick to its tail. As a result, the pull of the brick makes the mongoose come out of its hole. Every time the mongoose tries to be comfortable inside the hole, but it has to come out because of the pull of the brick. Such is the effect of brooding on worldly objects, that it makes the yogi stray from the path of yoga. So Sri Ramakrishna explains it, giving lots of examples. The lotus blooms, no doubt, when the sun is up, but its petals close again when the sun is covered by a cloud. Worldly thought is the cloud. So what happens when one reaches that highest state of samadhi? The world no longer holds any charm for the aspirant. He is no more deluded by the world because he is absorbed in the consciousness of God. This absorption leads to samadhi, an experience which is indescribable. It is beyond is and is not. There is neither happiness nor misery, neither light nor darkness. All is infinite being. It is a state of perfect peace, as if you are in deep sleep, a state of perfect peacefulness. Sri Ramakrishna explains this highest state of spiritual realization by giving another illustration. Suppose you keep 10 vessels filled with water, expose them to the sun. The sun reflects in each vessel. Break the vessels one by one, the reflection gets reduced. When only one vessel is left, the sun reflects in that. Finally, break even the last of the vessel. What remains? The sun itself. Similarly, the self-luminous Brahman reflects in the vessels of mind, senses, ego. They are all different vessels where the sun is being reflected. Break these vessels one by one. And go beyond the physical consciousness. Go beyond the subtle body. Go beyond the causal body. When you are able to go that way, you will reach Savikalpa Samadhi. That means you will see God face to face. But even in this stage, the sense of separateness still remains. The sense of duality. I am witnessing, I am seeing. Subject, object is still there. I am seeing God. So the perceiver and perceived, they exist. So, the last vessel, that means, is still to be broken. What is that last vessel? That ego. I am seeing. I am witnessing. I am remaining apart. I am identifying myself as so and so. Break it. And what remains? Brahman and Brahman alone. Who is there to see whom? Who describe to whom? These are the words of Sri Ramakrishna. That's the highest state of realization. When the mind is lost in samadhi, there is no consciousness of the present either. It's a state beyond past, present and future. That means you go beyond the time, space and causation. That state can't be described. It is not an ordinary state. Coming down from it, one cannot find words to express the joy of samadhi. You felt immensely joyful. You will not be able to explain it. Only you are able to experience it and feel that immense peacefulness in yourself. So Sri Ramakrishna would go very frequently to that highest state of samadhi. It was rather very difficult for him to come down. It is vice versa with our case. It is very difficult to raise our mind to the right level. But in case of Sri Ramakrishna, it was very difficult for him to get down. So he would cherish some trivial desire. I want to drink water. Something he needs, otherwise the mind cannot come down. So he would throw some desire into the lake of the mind. He would throw some desire. When you throw some desire, it produces its ripples. So when he said, I want to drink water. Immediately the mind takes that idea and tries to satisfy what he wants. He wants to drink water, so he becomes conscious of the external thing. Next, Sri Ramakrishna explains there are 5 kinds of light. The light of a lamp, the light of various kinds of fire, the light of the moon, the light of the sun, and lastly, the combined light of the sun and the moon. Sri Ramakrishna is giving this illustration to explain various religious, spiritual paths. Each path is like a light. It illumines, no doubt, the aspirant, but the intensity and voltage differs. And Sri Ramakrishna explains further, Bhakti is the light of the moon. Jnana is the light of the sun. In an incarnation of God, one sees at the same time the sun of knowledge and the moon of love. Sun of knowledge and the moon of love. Just as we see sometimes in the daytime also we see moon along with the sun. Both sun and moon are visible on some days. So Sri Ramakrishna gives that example. Incarnations are like that. They manifest both jnana and bhakti. So if you understand all these various factors, then it becomes clear to us how we should proceed in our spiritual path. What is needed is love and knowledge. Both are great indeed. Love is great, knowledge is great. Both are great. We need both. Then only the joy becomes full. Otherwise you have got partial joy. But if you have both jnana and bhakti, the joy becomes full. That joy is indescribable. So we should cherish that way. Let us fix the target. Let us follow the ideal with all carefulness, not deviating, not going here and there to distract the mind. You must have sufficient strength of mind if you have to go here and there. By going here and there, don't get destroyed yourself. That only shows you have not become strong enough to go here and there. So that means in the initial stage you require your spiritual ideas to be strengthened properly. So, without being dogmatic, without being fanatic, follow the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna with great steadfastness, with great zeal, with clarity of mind. Until and unless I realize the truth, let me not go here and there. Let me not waste my energy in distracting the mind. So it all depends upon to what extent your mind is up to. The substance of what Sri Ramakrishna tells here is that the spirituality becomes real to you only when you get rid of worldliness. If you get rid of 25% of worldliness, then to that extent you have the spirituality. If you get rid of 50% of worldliness, you have 50% of spirituality. You must measure that. So accordingly you must intensify your sadhana. Intensify your sadhana. Lukewarm practices will have no effect upon you. Lukewarm. You must be very strong and zealous in doing the sadhana. So at the time of practice, you must use all your energy towards achieving your spiritual goal. So that needs regular, not interrupted spiritual disciplines in life. So, what I am telling is, by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, you have been coming here. By his grace, you have been able to go through his teachings. So, try to become more and more inward. Come to the ashrama more frequently and become associated with the spiritual activities of the ashram here. So that mind is engaged in the spiritual current without deviating the mind anywhere else. As soon as you come to the ashram, the first thing you should do before going anywhere in this building, when you enter the building, the first thing is come to the chapel, offer your salutations to Sri Ramakrishna, sit down for 2-3 minutes, then go. Whatever work you want to do, whatever service you want to do. There must be dignity, reverence, respect. Then only you will enjoy spirituality, not otherwise. Simply coming in a haphazard way and living a haphazard life will not improve the situation. So, every moment is very important. When you step into the ashram, how you behave. You behave like a good devotee, behave like a man of knowledge. Both jnana and bhakti should be combined in your approach. You are coming here, this is the place of Sri Ramakrishna, where Sri Ramakrishna's special manifestation is. Since we are worshipping Sri Ramakrishna every day here, since Sri Ramakrishna has been installed in a proper way, so divine power is manifest here in a special way. So that spiritual light we would be able to see once we are aspiring for it. So when you come here, let the whole mind be occupied with Sri Ramakrishna. Nothing else. Keep all other things outside. for the time being. Come with the full mind of Sri Ramakrishna. Come with fullness of mind. Sit down for 2-3 minutes, then go. Then your service also becomes beautiful, and you will do it carefully because it's a sadhana. Meditation is not only the practice, even the activities, karma. If you do it in a proper way, that becomes sadhana. That's what Sri Ramakrishna tells. So Sri Ramakrishna's instruction to us is that we should develop all this jnana bhakti karma in right proportion. Then we enjoy real peace and joy. The Supreme God incarnate of this age, He has given very valuable teachings for us to make our life blessed. If we read His teachings, our life will never go waste. It will never be in vain. But we should study. That much effort we should do. Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Every page contains full of instructions. Given directly by Sri Ramakrishna himself. Himself practiced all the spiritual disciplines for 12 years. And has given out these pearls of wisdom. If we follow them, we are sure to get peace and joy wherever we are. We will not be lost in the world. On the other hand, we find the world beautiful and useful because the world has provided us an opportunity to enjoy spiritual ecstasy. So, Sri Ramakrishna always would tell that to reach the goal should be our ideal. Goal must be fixed, that is, realizing Paramatman, seeing God, and to experience peace and ecstasy. One can reach that state by going either through thorny forest or along a good road. What is needed is we should not lose sight of the goal. We should practice spiritual disciplines with faith and devotion. In the end, it will lead us to the same goal. God is our goal. We should take refuge in Him. Nobody else will save us in this world, because everyone is for himself. It is very rare to find a person who loves everyone, who loves the whole creation. It's only the holy people who are struggling we should have association with such people. Then we become inspired to do spiritual sadhana. If we don't give attention to the practice, we are sure to be lost in this world, because it is so attractive. It pulls you from all directions, and very difficult to say what will happen. So when the mind is young, when the body is young, when we are young, in spite of all our worldly duties and worldly responsibilities, we should never give up spiritual practices. Every day it's a must. Just like we eat food, we take food, even so we must keep on doing spiritual disciplines. So we should look upon the Divine Master, Sri Ramakrishna, in this modern age. He is our all in all. Let us have tremendous faith in Him and devotion to His lotus feet. Let us follow very carefully, with all sincerity, His teachings. We must be ever watchful about the goal. We must never forget the aim of life. Whatever we may be doing, we should know for certain that the ultimate goal of life is to realize God. Without that, life is in vain. You may have wonderful material achievements. They mean nothing. Spiritual achievement is the real achievement, which takes you away from darkness to light, which alone gives you real peace. So, we should keep our eyes always turned towards Him. especially when we sit in for meditation, we are consciously sitting for prayers, for offering our devotion. We should turn completely towards Him, surrender to Him, pray to Him to protect always. Life is not meant for spending just in the pleasure of the body. Let us not allow our life to be spent in vain. We should try zealously for the realization of the Master. For any achievement, you require at least 15-20 years. Even materially speaking, if you have to become a graduate and complete in your education, it will take at least 15 to 20 years. Then what to speak of spiritual graduation? What to speak of spiritual education? We have to make our efforts. Let us feel always that we are His absolutely and forever, in body, mind, soul, be His. In that becoming, everything that religion means and is will be realized. By becoming His only, we will reach the goal of all human duties and responsibilities. If the duties and responsibilities do not take you towards God, what is the use of such responsibilities? What is the use of such duties? Tell me. They should give you spiritual insight. To forget the goal of life, that means not to think in terms of realizing God or giving any attention to spirituality. It is nothing but forgetting the goal of life. To forget the goal of life is to ruin ourselves. We do not know again when we are born, in what shape, in what form, where, when we would be born. We don't know. So, we should always keep the ideal before our eyes, and we should struggle and struggle and struggle to reach it. Struggling. Without struggling, you won't get. I use the word struggling because it appears difficult to clear the mind of all worldly impressions. Mind is full of worldly impressions. There is no place for spiritual impression to stay on. So it's really a struggle to get rid of all these worldly impressions. That's why I use the word struggle. In Sanskrit, we use the word tapas. We won't yield to these impressions. We resist them. We have nothing to fear. We have nothing to fear since we are holding on to the pillar, the Divine Master, the Lord of the universe. We shouldn't be disheartened by the thought that we have not attained our goal. We should have considerable patience. Unless the worldly impressions are removed from the mind, you can't get the vision of God. Unless the whole mind becomes clean, you can't have the full reflection of God. You can't have the samadhi till the mind is free from all impurities. So when we keep on doing practices, God will grant us His vision and help us in every way and at the correct time. Leave it to God. Let us not force it on Him. If you leave it to God, He will do nicely. If you force upon Him, you don't know whether it is correct or not. Mostly it will not be correct. To give an illustration, once Mathur Babu came to Sri Ramakrishna and said, Master, you have granted state of samadhi to many disciples. Why should I not get? Why don't you show your grace on me and make me experience that samadhi? So he was keep on pressing him. Sri Ramakrishna said, it will come at the correct time, don't force yourself that way. But like the child forcing the mother, it wants some candy, it cries and it dances and the mother should immediately throw away all the candies to the child. So this way, Mathur Baba was forcing him, and Sri Ramakrishna said, all right, since you are pressing so much by the will of the mother, you will have that samadhi experience. Sri Ramakrishna said this, then he got into that samadhi state. His mind was simply rising involuntarily. It is not asking Madhur Babu whether I should rise up, etc. See, our mind sometimes behaves, sometimes acts in its own way. We may want it, we may not want it. It does in its way. If you watch it, you will know many things, how mind functions. So here, Mathur Babu was literally, he was taken aback. He was frightened because he does not know where his mind is going. Simply it is rising and rising and rising. And finally, he came to a state where he is feeling that he is not the body, and he is losing the consciousness of the world.